So, stop scarring children witless about climate change. Teachers should educate children about climate, not terrify them about the apocalypse. To start off, we have a picture here of Greta Thunberg. As far as I know, she has Asperger's, OCD, and I've also heard she had a history of harming herself, which is quite common with those with Asperger's and OCD. But telling
In
such a
combination.
telling such a kid that the world is gonna end unless she does something should be considered fucking child abuse. Like,
But I don't know about that. I
well,
mean, just living in a home, dealing with poverty alone, it would be then tantamount as well.
you, you shouldn't tell kids something like that.
Yeah,
Especially,
absolutely.
especially someone with Asperger's and OCD, which makes change a very scary thing for people like that.
And what's more of a change than burning in hell?
Hmm.
That is the earth.
So, not many people can command an audience of senior politicians. Fewer still can expect cheers and standing ovation from those they have just publicly criticized. Yet this was the reception a 16-year-old Greta Thunberg received when she addressed MPs and journalists in Westminster this week. Your voice, still calm and clear, is like the voice of our conscience, Environment Secretary Michael Gove told her, praying for absolution.
We're not worthy. We're not worthy.
Like
Looks like
this just makes me sad, you know. Like, it's politicians using a child to advance their political goals, and
what else is new?
it's not something new, but
I mean, just watch what happened with the Parkland survivors over here. It's
yeah,
disgusting.
definitely,
No,
yeah.
no, but you don't understand. She's 16. That means she should be old enough to vote in America, according to
Also,
people.
she's a woman or whatever.
Hmm.
Whoa.
She's a little girl, but
I mean, I definitely think she dresses younger than
Yeah.
she probably should for 16, I guess. I
Oh
don't know.
yeah, and a part of that could be that, of course, the younger you look, the the better it is for this case. But
yeah, that's
she
true.
also has Asperger's and OCD, so just could be that
Yeah, I don't,
she dresses young because she likes that.
entirely possible. And I mean,
Hmm.
it's her free choice to dress however she wants. I'm just
Exactly.
saying,
This is a
doesn't.
strange topic.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it definitely is because
Climate
let's move
change.
on to the actual climate change
mhm,
part.
when it comes to climate change, the normal rules of politics and the usual ways that adults relate to children have all been abandoned. Adults, it seems, now defer to children.
Sure,
And
they do.
yeah, and that's the thing. It's really hard to criticize a child like that.
It's because you're oppressing the children.
Hmm.
Oh God, not this again.
So school children who skip classes to protest against climate change have been widely praised. Yeah, here too. Again, it has been MPs who've rushed to lead the applause. Some head teachers, quick to fine parents for taking their children on holiday during term time, were happy to overlook pupils missing lessons to join the Tonsberg-inspired climate strike. Yeah, to talk about this, it's also the case here, but the controls, especially where I live, aren't as hard, but in some regions they are. And for example, if you want to take your kids out of the season on a vacation because you're on benefits and else you just can't pay to go on vacation in the high season, you can get really bad fines for pulling your kid out of school. But week after week, going to protest for the climate during school hours is all of a sudden fine. You're not treating those two the same. The same rule has been broken.
I
And
mean, it could be that it's not actually fine, but there's so many people that are actually doing it that in order to actually enforce it effectively, it would cost too much.
We know that's That's not what it
Oh
is.
no, the fines are pretty high, dude. They would definitely get some money back.
Sure, but then you'd make the problem is legally. Then you could make the case for them not going after some people when they know that so many people have actually been, committing this.
Mhm.
It's usually the problem with group demonstrations when you do things in front of the police. If you have so many people and the police only
Well-
arrest some of them, then they have
Well, it's not a case of arresting them. It's a case of them missing school.
detaining. Well,
I think
the
he's
parents
talking
are
about
held liable is the
Mhm.
problem.
I think he's talking about the teachers, not the students.
No,
Like holding
Teachers, too.
teachers liable.
Teachers would both be liable as well as the parents, I think. That would be the case in the U.S. anyway.
so meanwhile, some parents and teachers joined children in the protest, not content with letting children bunk off school. There are growing calls for more lesson time in school to be given over to teaching about climate change. To talk about that, I know this is of course a story about the UK. I can tell some of my, I'm currently in high school, so I can, about a quarter of the time spent in some courses is spent on climate change already. And I don't know how this is for the UK, but you get bombarded with it, like little stupid projects about making a journey with the least amount of CO2, things like that.
I mean, is it within context of the subjects? Is it like laced throughout the lesson
Oh,
plan, or is it
definitely.
like dedicated times for?
I don't think we would be seeing demonstrations this big about how the world is going to end from kids if it wasn't already deep in the curriculum.
I find it strange that to have something in the curriculum, kids getting excited for. I feel like in the U.S., if kids are getting taught something in school, they definitely don't want to be standing around yelling about it because no one likes public schools over here.
Well,
That has me a little bit questioning the validity of kids actually wanting to come out and protest.
Yeah, and
It
I mean,
feels like it could probably be an excuse to just not go to school.
no,
or the teachers are
okay.
pressuring.
I'm currently in high school, so at least here we also had some pretty big climate protests, and I would say about 80% of the people, at least on my school, who went for the day off or just smoke weed in Amsterdam. Like people were making, big groups were making plans to go there just purely to, oh nice, a day off.
imagine my shock. School
Yeah.
kids playing hooky in order to be,
To get high.
In order to yell loudly and smoke weed.
So a petition demanding climate change be made a core part of the national curriculums, started by 4 Oxford schoolgirls, again with the using little girls for for your political gain, has rapidly gained close to 70,000 signatures.
boy.
Yeah, the girls argue that climate change is the biggest issue of our time and must be a part of our education if our generation is to understand it and help us combat its effects. Yeah, I mean, I would be surprised if they really don't get teach that much, because it is an important. Well, it get laced between things here, and it can be a thing on its own. So
Here's the thing. I don't have a problem with people teaching about climate change, that it's an issue, and trying to understand how to combat it. But shouldn't discussions about it also be focused around practical efforts to help combat it instead of just protests and demonstrations?
Nuclear.
yeah, I would love someone to actually have told me something about nuclear energy. And me not having to look at that shit on our own, because I do think if if what they're saying is right, which can be debated, our only option is nuclear, because solar panels, well, especially panels and wind energy, just isn't an efficient form of generating energy.
Well,
Not efficient enough.
There's efficiency issues. There's issues with how much energy it takes and how much harm done to the environment is caused by creating the panels.
Yeah, you can't currently run a whole grid on renewable energy because it's not the same current all the time. The energy network's pretty complicated, and you always need to put in the same amount, or you always need to put in the power people want. So you
you have to keep the draw that is coming from the grid equalized. Otherwise, you get brownouts and blackouts.
Yep.
The big thing I'm bothered by is like people are talking about what we can do in terms of fighting it and like terms of energy solutions. I want to see people talking about engineering solutions and ways to deal with stuff like the Pacific plastic island.
Here's the thing about teaching this stuff to the kids. You have to actually explain to them why climate change is happening and what you can actually do to solve the situation. But they're just kids, people will say. You can't just explain to them how nuclear works. Well, then don't give them propaganda without proper context. You got to give them the information. If you can't give them the information, then don't give them the information. You're misleading the kids by not giving them the whole story.
True.
That's the frustrating part for me.
If you can't give them the whole story, if you can't give them the context of what's going on, if you can't give them the means to understand and try to work to build a solution to the problem that is both reasonable and realistic, then don't slam them with propaganda.
I mean, what do they think that the kids are coming home with? The idea, we just have to get together and protest. That's a solution in and of itself.
We have to totally shut down the economy for 5 to 10 years, give the state all the power to build a network of and rebuild our whole society to renewable standards, even though we don't currently have the technology. But
it's madness.
And even if that would be the case, I would rather take the chance of them being right and 100, 200 million people dying than these people taking over and for sure killing 100, 200 million people as we've seen in the past.
Well, let's just let the floodwaters take us, or we can hire the Dutch to build everyone a bunch of dikes.
Yeah, definitely. We'll build some dikes for money.
Heck yeah.
I mean, we're already doing that. We've already done that in the past too in America. Helped you guys.
Number one export will be dikes in 2050, clearly.
Climate change would be really good for business.
I don't pretend that climate change couldn't cause catastrophic weather events and more problems for the rest of the world. And that may displace and harm potentially millions. But I'm willing to bet that there will be people who engineer solutions to those problems because there's a market to engineer solutions to those problems.
Well, sure, but you got to keep in mind that the market isn't instantaneous. Things are going to happen in the meantime, and I'm not just talking about hurricanes. I mean, we already have states and countries that aren't properly managing their current environment. What is to say that they're going to manage a quickly changing environment any better, even if there's market incentives for it? I mean, New York has to spend, I don't even know the number, it's millions and millions of dollars every year on pumping out water from their sewage system because of the environment that they've built the city sewage on.
I'm not sitting here and pretending that it would ever be like a perfect solution.
Yeah.
But I think it would be a better solution than just handing over the keys to the government and saying, hey, you have carte blanche to completely fuck with everything in order to build the best solution
at all costs.
I mean, we need to do this together, but I have fucking rights and stay away from them.
and then you come to find out that some other weather event that no one planned for, or some tectonic shift, just throws the entire plan awry, and then you wasted all that time, money, and effort.
Yeah, too, because you're not talking about making sure that the floods don't happen. For example, here our floodgates are built for a once in a 10,000 year storm, or something like that. It could be 1,000. But what's just gonna happen is that number is gonna go lower, so there will be a higher chance of something breaking through, of course. But just
I'm wondering if
you're just gonna build your
Dutch
infrastructure for that.
I'm wondering if Dutch infrastructure could actually handle the kind of weather that we get over here in the United States, the hurricanes. Because you guys don't get hurricanes. You've got a big
No.
giant island protecting you and your position in general.
I'm
Kinda
sure
unrelated.
something could be thought up on if the need would be high enough.
And another thing related to this, the idea that protesting will actually solve anything, and we can talk about solutions to climate change, quote unquote. Problem is, even if you figure out what you can do with climate change, I mean, there's some exceptions, and you work hard over a long period of time, you have to get China to do it. You're not going to get China to do it. You can't
True.
get China to do anything right now.
And another
Russia isn't working too well.
big problem is that well, you need a certain amount of money to even care about your environment, purely on the basis of you can only care about your environment if your life is in complete agony every day. And for a lot of people in China, that's still the case. I mean, not having accessible, reliable power, for example.
Well, there's been some studies that come out, and so I think I've seen Peterson referenced a couple times that once you get about 3,000 to 15, I don't know the exact number. Once you get to a certain amount of annual income, that's when people start actually caring about the environment. Generally, people in poverty don't care about the environment, even if the environment is negatively affecting them.
And you also need to separate the environment and climate. Those are also two different things.
Yeah.
The one is linked to the other.
But they're conflated.
Yeah.
They are, but they're conflated constantly. So
Yeah,
when people are talking about it, then
I've seen campaign posters with "for a clean climate" on it, like from Green Left here.
I want really clean tornadoes. I want them to be pristine. I don't want any debris in my tornado.
We need to have the cleanest snowstorms. We're going to have the purest nor'easters you've ever seen.
We're gonna get that Himalayan ice water snowstorms forever.
Glacial pure.
Yep.
Let's see. A finished article.
Yeah.
Yep.
We can also skip the last part.
You want me to read the rest?
Sure.
Where we at here? Here it is. Their cause was promoted on Twitter by the BBC's John Simpson, who asked, "Since this is the most important problem our planet faces, shouldn't our children be taught about it?" Graham Frost, a teacher from primary school in Carlisle? God, that's weird. Will propose a motion at the forthcoming annual conference of the National Association of Head Teachers in favor of compulsory climate change lessons for all children to include instructions in how to protest letters, produce protest letters and banners. Ooh, this is sounding a lot like a certain group of people in a country called Germany from a certain time period. This isn't great. I don't like this.
Let's teach our kids how to rabble-rouse against the state.
Ooh, I want to make sure children's concerns about the future of the planet are being listened to by policymakers, he said. No, you.
Oof.
No, you.
Yeah.
You're a liar.
To go from this first very saddening and then, I mean, getting a bit angry there. Let's go to the next story.